Hey everybody, welcome to deck highlighting, this time featuring Azami, Lady of Scrolls. She is a 5-drop, 3 blue, 2 colorless, 0/2, but her ability is where it's at. Tap and untap wizard you control, and draw a card. That's what I have my entire deck based around, and this is my Azami deck. First off, we do run 29 lands, 21 of it being these snow-covered islands. We use snow-covered islands because of a little card called Expropriate. Expropriate says that imprint land underneath it, and all lands with the same name tap for double, or tap for one more. So all these become tap for 2 instead of 1. Super helpful when it comes to needing quick cards to come out. But that is Snow-Covered Islands. Our special lands include Cavernous Souls, which we call wizards on. Allows us not to be countered whenever we want to cast Azami or any other wizards. Azami gets a lot of hate, so it's good to protect her as much as I can. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, is good because I'm mono blue, so all my spells on the field will be blue. It lets me tap for a lot of mana. Ancient Tomb, and it allows me to get a lot of mana. Hurts me, but it's really fast early game and helps out a lot. Reliquary Tower, because we're going to be drawing a lot of cards, and we're going to need to have no max hand size. Synod, the reason why I had this in the deck is because it is an artifact land. Allows me to go grab... Allows me to go grab artifacts search for it with artifact tutors, such as like if I really needed to, Word of Invention, but things like that. It just allows me to find it with some of my tutors. Manamo. School of Water at Water's Edge is a really good land because when you tap it with a blue, you can untap legendary creature or permanent, and so when I have Azami tapped, I can just untap her, tap her again, draw another card. Really helpful. Mutavault, because I can use pay 1 mana, turn it into a creature, 2/2 creature of all types, which include wizards, so I can tap it and draw a card. So that's pretty good. Riptide Laboratory, because we gotta have another way to protect our wizards. Pay 1 colorless, 1 blue, and tap it to return a wizard I control to its owner's hand. So we can put it. Let's say someone targets Azami with a kill spell. Well, if I have the mana open, I just tap that, bounce Azami back to my hand, so I don't have to pay the extra 2 for the commander cost to cast it, which is very helpful. I can't tell you how many times this deck has gone to needing to pay 11 or more to cast Azami. Being a 5-drop, that's a lot of deaths, or a lot of counters on her. So that's the reason why I have Riptide Laboratory. Plus there's a win condition in here that lets me take infinite turns, basically. It's super large. I mean, I can keep it going, basically, until I run out of cards in the deck. It's a really good combo, and I'll show you that here in a little while. We're going to go straight to my win conditions in the deck, and the reason why we're going straight to my win conditions is because it'll give you more of an idea of why some of these cards are in my deck. So my primary win with this deck is Laboratory Maniac. If I would draw a card while I have no library, or if I would draw a card while my library has no cards in it, I win instead of lose. I win the game instead. So because of that, if I deck myself with Laboratory Maniac on the field, I would win. So that's my primary objective. This pretty much should just be by itself up here. This is my primary objective. My other win condition includes Walking Ballista with infinite mana. Once I have infinite mana, I just pump it into here and kill everybody on the board. It's fine. Or arbitrary large amount of mana, not infinite. So that's another win condition. those two are my two main win conditions. Other ones include taking infinite turns or decking everybody else with Blue Sun Zenith and stuff like that. So I mean, those two are just my primary conditions. To get to my Laboratory Maniac win, Enter the Infinite, it pretty much does it immediately. I draw my entire deck and put one card back, and then I have infinite, so I have no max hand size for another turn. So I have my entire deck in my hand for another turn. At least if I don't have my Reliquary Tower out, which by then I should be able to put it out. But with Enter the Infinite, once I draw all those cards, I have all my counter spells, I have every way to win the game. I should have Lab Maniac in hand if I didn't before, and I just cast it, protect him, and win the game. Enter the Infinite is a super good card. You can't have an Azami in your deck without having Mind Over Matter. Mind Over Matter is a fantastic card. You get to choose and discard a card from your hand, and then tap or untap a target artifact, creature, or land. So basically what that means is that if I have this as my hand, if I want to draw a card, like Azami's already tapped out and all my wizards are already tapped out, if I want to draw a card, I discard a card, untap her, tap her again, and then draw a card from there. And I just keep doing it. I just keep drawing cards until I get to my Laboratory Maniac, or if he's already on the field, I just keep doing it until I win the game. So I just have cards in hand to do it. Usually you want to have about four cards in hand to guarantee that wins you the game, as long as everybody else is tapped out. If you don't have 4 cards in hand, I've won off of 3 cards in hand, but it's very tricky. But 4 cards is mostly the minimum to win the game with that. Then I have Palinchron, Peregrine Drake, Deadeye Navigator. Palinchron by itself can make infinite mana if I have mana doubling going on. Peregrine Drake allows me to do this, kind of the same but with Deadeye Navigator, because I can just bounce him up and down using his Soulbound and bounce spell, or bounce cost. And I can also attach him to Palinchron. Thing is, once I make infinite or arbitrarily large amount of mana, I can actually bounce Deadeye to Azami, and then bounce Azami and draw my deck that way. So that's another way I can just win with that is Deadeye Navigator. This also makes infinite mana. Remember, or large amount of mana. So remember that this does that, because that's very important. Another way to make infinite or arbitrary, I'm just going to say infinite. You guys just get mad about it. I don't care. It's just so much easier. Basalt Monolith, the Rings of Brighthearth, and Power Artifact. Basically, you tap this for 3, and then you have to pay 3 to untap it. Well, when you pay 3 to untap it, you pay 2 more to copy the untap, and then at that point you can tap this again and then make it. And I'll use the 2 untap and just make infinite mana. You just have to have 5 mana to get this going, including itself if you haven't tapped it already. But when you do that, you can tap and untap it for infinite mana, infinite colorless mana. When you have Basalt Monolith down and you attach Power Artifact to it, Power Artifact says that the activation of target artifact is reduced by 2. So that means that instead of tapping this for 3 to untap it, you only need to tap it for 1. So you tap it for 3, untap it for 1. So you net 1 mana each time. And that's how you make infinite colors there. That just allows me to do everything in my deck, including Walking Ballista, because I have all that mana. So that's the best way to go about getting my mana for Walking Ballista. Another way, if I have mana rocks, which I have a bunch of mana rocks in this deck, but if I have Isochron Scepter with Dramatic Reversal imprinted on it, then I can tap it for 2 mana, because like I said, I have to have the rocks. Like 1 Soul Ring allows me to do this as much as I want. But do that, cast on Dramatic Reversal which untaps all non-land permanents I control. So I untap it along with Azami, and I can draw cards, do it again, untap, draw more cards. It allows me to draw my deck out, and if I have 3 mana rocks or a Soul Ring and a Chrome Mox or something like that, I can make infinite mana too, doing it this way. So that's another way to get my win condition. And the last way is Paradox Engine. I have a lot of low cost spells in here, like Icebound Scepter, like a lot of Basalt Monolith, like ton of stuff that I can just cast. And when I cast them, I can untap all my permanents, which includes Azami, which allows me to draw for more cards, giving me a higher chance of getting cards I need to cast for Paradox Engine. And I keep going until I get my win conditions, and then I win the game. So those are my primary win conditions. Blue Sun Zenith also is going to be part of my draws, which are next. The Blue Sun, I can deck everybody else out with arbitrary large amount of mana, or I can draw myself, so I can get to my win conditions too. That pretty much explains that. So let me go ahead and show you all these. So that's Blue Sun Zenith, and then this also shuffles in. So this is a really good spell because it's at instant speed to make sure I don't deck myself or someone doesn't try decking me out, because I can be like, no, I'm just going to cast that. So that's that. Brainstorm. This is actually the new Brainstorm. I swapped it out from the old one just because the art is a lot better in my opinion. But I draw 3 cards and put 2 of them back on top of the library. It's just more draw. Get pro, get to see opponent, like someone who has counter spells, make sure they don't, or anything like that, and draw a card. Frantic Search, if I have double mana right now, I can untap 3 lands when I'm done drawing my cards and discarding, and that allows me to net mana, which is good. Risted Study allows me to draw cards if people don't, whenever people cast something if they don't pay mana. So it's really helpful in keeping people mana checked, along with like, hey, give me cards in my hand if not. Time Reversal sets us back. It's kind of like a wheel effect. We all shuffle our hand and graveyard into the library and then draw 7. This is actually going to be replaced sometime in the future. I don't know when, but when I get a Time Twister sometime in the future, this is what I'm swapping out because it does the same thing. It's for 2 mana instead of 5. But this is really good for right now. Ponder, look at the top 3 cards in my library, or I can shuffle it and put one in my hand by drawing the card. Preordain, scry 2, draw a card. Good 1-drop spells, also helps with Paradox Engine. Frantic Search, an opponent, which is your priority, so whoever's to your left basically. You reveal 5 cards to them and they get to choose 2 piles to give back to you. Impulse, look at the top 4 cards of your library, pick one, put them in my hand, put the rest in the bottom. Really good small spells that allows me to get what I need, possibly. Speaking of getting what I need, Mystical Tutor allows me to go get blue instant sorcery and put them to the top of my deck. And Merchant Scroll allows me to go get an instant spell, blue instant spell, and put it into my hand. So like counter magic if I need it or something like that. Long-term plans allows me to go get any card from my deck and put it 3rd from the top. Usually something like Laboratory Maniac, Paradox Engine, Enter the Infinite, whatever I need at the time. Put it 3rd from the top, and I can draw those pretty easily. Now this is a text that I have personally in here. Flood of Recollection. The reason this is in here is it's so I can go ahead and get an instant or sorcery card from my graveyard and put it to my hand. It is so very helpful and has let me come back from so many games because sometimes I had to discard stuff like Enter the Infinite, stuff like that, but this allows me to get it back, or cards like Fabricate, which allows me to go get an artifact. I can do this twice with Flood. That way I can go get all the artifacts I need. Like if I need a Soul Ring or Mana Bolts or something like that, and this allows me to get this back, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to go get Dramatic Reversal. You know, something like, or not Dramatic, go get Icecrown Scepter, you know, just to win the game. So it's really good spell. Flutter Recollection, definitely a really good addition to the deck. Fabricate lets me go search for any artifact in my deck and put it into my hand. Really helpful. And then Word of Invention lets me Gilligan Artifact of X cost. So if I pay 3 mana into it, I can go get a 0-drop. If I can pay 5 mana into it, I can go get a 2-drop. You know, things like that. It's a really good spell, and if this resolves, and whatever you're getting is coming straight to the battlefield. So I can just immediately go, here's my Paradox Engine, oh, here's my Walking Ballista, let me pump him now. Like, oh no, not Walking Ballista, I'm sorry, you do not get Walking Ballista with it because he'll die immediately. I meant Icecrown Scepter. Yeah, really good stuff. High Tide, because it lets me tap for double on all islands. It allows all your opponents to do it too, so you just gotta watch out about that. But whenever I'm going off to win, usually this is the card I play. I only have 4 really. Oops, sorry. I have only like 4 natural like board control cards. Cyclonic Rift, which you can overload to bounce all your opponent's cards back to their hand, non-land permanents back to their hand. Snap, which allows me to return a creature to its owner's hand and then untap 2 lands. A lot of times I actually use this for myself, so I can untap my lands and bounce a wizard or something so I can cast them again to tap and draw a card. I do that quite often. Chain of Vapor, also something I usually do to myself instead because they have a chance of doing this back to me. But this one is return an online permanent to their owner's hand, and then the controller of that permanent can copy the spell if they sacrifice the land. Sometimes, most of the time, people won't do it, but I usually cast it on myself just to make sure that no one will do it to me. And then Capsize. Capsize, if I have infinite mana again, I can cast this and buy it back infinite amount of times, so I can bounce everybody's board because it's return target permanent to its owner's hand. So I can just buy, or if I'm just up against something pesky, I can just bounce it back to the hand, or someone's about to win, so I bounce it back to their hand. You know, something like that. We're gonna get into our artifacts now. Let's go ahead and do that. Explainer Lens. Explainer Lens is a super good card because, like we were talking about earlier, it allows me to draw. It allows me to tap for 2 instead of tapping for 1 on all my snow-covered islands, and that's the reason why I play snow-covered islands, because most of the time people are only going to play normal islands. So protecting myself when it comes to that. My mana rocks, I have a bunch of mana rocks in here. I have Mana Vault, which you tap it for 3, then you have to wait until your wait until your upkeep to untap it for 4, or it hurts you. But it's still tapping for 3 for only paying 1. It's super good. Soul Ring, pay 1, tap for 2. It's all just value, super hardcore value. Lotus Petal, you can tap it, sack it, and put 1 mana of any color into your mana pool. So it's just good for a quick gain of mana. Plus it's a 0-drop, so it's not too bad. We'll get into the 0-drops now. We have Mox Opal. I play a lot of artifacts in the deck, so you can tap it. If you have 3 or more, it has Metalcraft, so if you have 3 or more artifacts that you control, you can tap it for any mana. So when I have 3 or more artifacts, I tap it for blue. So it's helpful to have. Chrome Mox, you exile a card underneath it, a colored card. When you do, it can tap for, or any card, you can tap it for that color. So I exile a blue card underneath it and tap it for blue. And it's a 0-drop, so Paradox Engine, stuff like that, it loves these kind of cards. Mox Diamond, when you play it, you discard a land from your hand, and you can tap this for to pay for it coming into the battlefield. If not, this gets sacked. but when you do, you tap it for any mana. What's really good about Mox Diamond also, and stuff like Chrome Mox, is that even if you don't have the thing to exile with it, if you have Paradox Engine out, you can still cast it for 0. It will sack itself, so you can't use it. It'll sack itself, but you do cast it, and your Paradox Engine does get a trigger, so that's always good. Mana Crypt allows me to tap for 2 for free, like the 0 drop, you tap it for 2. The only downside is that on your upkeep, it has a possibility of doing 3 damage to you. You flip a coin if you call it. If you fail the call, like if you call that odds hurt you, then if it hits odds, then it'll do 3 damage to you. But you can tap it for 2, so it's really helpful. Really good card. Thran Dynamo, which is another card I'm going to be replacing for Grim Monolith. I do not have a Grim Monolith right now, but I do plan on getting one. But until then, this is a 4-drop that taps for 3, so it's Thran Dynamo. Gilded Lotus, 5-drop, taps for 3 of any color, so that's really good. With cards like Thran Dynamo and that, with Ice Crown Scepter Dramatic Reversal, with just this one card, I'm making infinite mana, so it's super helpful. We have Cage Sun, which allows me to double my mana, or add 1 to my mana pool, and my blue creatures get +1/+1, which can be helpful at times. Or swing out for them, that commander damage now. But it does add that extra mana for blue spells, which is super important. Sensei's Divining Top. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them in any order, back in any order, then you can tap it to draw a card. So it's really hard to kill Sensei's Divining Top, because if they target it, you're like, alright, well, I'm just going to draw a card instead. But this is really good at keeping what you want on top of your deck. Sapphire Medallion, all my blue spells cost 1 less to play. Really helpful considering this is a mono blue deck. All my spells will cost 1 less, including this one. Copy Artifact, I can just copy into those artifacts I just showed you. Very helpful. I can copy someone else's artifact. It's a very helpful card to have. Now we're going to get into like creatures here. I use Snowbird Banneret because it's a wizard itself, and that my wizard spells will cost 1 less to play. So that automatically makes Azami a 4-drop instead of a 5-drop. If I have stuff like Sapphire Medallion, it's a 3-drop. Like, that's fantastic. Things like that, super helpful. And then once she's actually out, then I can just be like, all right, well, now I can tap it for mana, or tap it to draw a card. It's a really good card to have. Another really good card is Baral. Does the same thing, but for instants or sorceries. So it lets me draw those sorceries, and he's a wizard. And whenever I counter a spell, I can draw a card and then discard a card. So it's another way to draw cards in the deck. Trinket Mage lets me go get a 1 or 0 drop artifact. And as you saw, I do have a lot of those. When it comes into play, I just go search. It's great. Glenn, Alondra. She is great because when she comes out, she is immediately a threat because I can just pay 1 blue, sacrifice her, and counter target non-creature spell. Doesn't sound too impressive, but she has Persist. So when I sack her to counter a spell, she comes back with a -1/-1 counter on her. So it's essentially just going, well, I'm just going to counter that twice, or counter something twice. If someone has Solemnity out, that's even better because I can just be like, oh, I'm just going to pay my blue, counter all your shit. But Glenn is really good. People keep telling me play a Merfolk that came out that has, or is coming out, that has Sacrifice and counter spell. I do not like sacrificing a wizard to counter spell. The reason why Glenn's in here is because she has Persist. And so I can do it to something that really needs to be countered, and then I can still tap her to draw cards. And what's also good is I can tap her to draw a card and then sack her, and then she comes back untapped. Like, she's just better in general because of Persist than these other cards people are trying to get me to put in here. Teferi, freaking amazing card because it has Flash, so you can put it into someone's turn or in response to somebody casting something ridiculous. Creature spells, creature cards that you control have flash also, so that's really good because we can flash in a Lab Maniac. But each opponent can cast spells only anytime he or she can cast a sorcery. So now all spells are cast at sorcery speed except for mine. So only I can counter things. Only I can cast spells at instant speed. So it helps out a lot. Venser allows me to bounce any spell that someone plays or that's on the battlefield back to their hand. Permanent back to their hand. Like it's a great card. It's another wizard tap and draw card. Archaeomancer lets me get a insert sorcery spell back from my graveyard to my hand, kind of like Flood of Recollection. What's really good about this is that is where this came in. I have Time Warp in the deck, so let me go ahead and grab that to showcase this. So Time Warp says target player takes an extra turn after this one. So that means that, you know, I can just like, I'm gonna cast this, I'm gonna take an extra turn. Then I play Archaeomancer to bring this back to my hand, and then I tap Riptide Laboratory, bounce him back to my hand. The next turn comes around, do that again, do that again, do that, do that, do that. Next turn, do that, do that, do that, or do that, do that, do that. And you know, it's an infinite loop, and it lets me draw cards, it lets me play lands and stuff like that. So I just keep net gaining each turn that it gives me. So it's a fantastic little combo in here. Snapcaster Mage lets me, it's another thing, it's the same way as Archaeomancer. No, it's not, I'm sorry. Archaeomancer brings it back to my hand. Snapcaster Mage is a little different. Snapcaster Mage lets me give a instant sorcery in my graveyard flashback. So it has to exile afterwards, unfortunately. But pay that, flashback, do the thing. For only 2 mana, it's really good. It's also a wizard draw card. Temporal Mastery. Take an extra turn after this. Really good thing is that it has a miracle. So if I know it's on top of my deck, I can draw on someone else's turn, or you know, I can tutor with Mystical Tutor and put it on top of my deck, so I know I'm drawing it my next card, and I can take an extra turn. But miracle cost is only whenever when it's the first card you draw that turn. So paying for 2 instead of 7 is super helpful. Take an extra turn. It exiles afterwards, but it's still fantastic. Beginning of Tomorrow's, take an extra turn, and then this shuffles back into my deck. This is a way to make sure I can take infinite turns if I only have this in my deck, because I can just keep drawing it, casting it, drawing it, casting it, drawing it, casting it. That helps so that I don't deck myself if I lose Lab Maniac or something. And I can do all kinds of, I can try to figure some ways around situations. Expropriate, fantastic card. It's a 9-drop, but starting with me, you can choose time or money. Time gives you an extra turn. Money, you can take a permanent. So I choose time, I'm going to take an extra turn. That person chooses time, I get 2 turns. That person chooses time, I get 3 turns. That person over there chooses money, I get 1 of their permanents, like their commander or something. It's fantastic. It's any permanent too, so I can take lands, I can do all kinds of stuff with it. Usually if this comes out in a summon, I get like at least 2 turns, I'm winning the game, most likely. Time Warp, just looked at that, just take an extra turn spell that doesn't exile itself like these other ones do. That's good. So now we're going to get into my counter spells, which case I have 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 normally, and then I have all the all those other ones like Glen and stuff like that allows me to counter spells. Counter spell, basic counter spell, just a normal one. Counter target spell. Rewind, counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands, especially if I'm doing mana doubling. Super good. Disallow, counter target spell, or activated ability, or triggered ability. what's really good about that is that not only can I counter a spell, but it's like a stifle. I can stifle something. Stop people from activating, like they have to pay the 50 life, but stopping people from Aetherflux reservoiring me, stuff like that. So if they already pay that life, then maybe they can't do it again, who knows. Overwhelming Denial, counter spell, and this spell cannot be countered. And I can pay for only 2 blue instead of 4 mana to use this if I've cast a spell already this turn. So really good at protecting my stuff. Negate, counter target non-creature spell for only 2. It's good. Swan Song, only 1 counter target enchantment, instant sorcery, and then they get a 2/2 bird. But still, Swan Song is fantastic to 1 drop. Mana Drain, 2 blue, lets me counter a target spell, and then at the beginning of my next main phase, my next main phase, I add that many colorless to my mana pool for how much that spell's converted to mana cost. So when caster their 6-drop commander, I counter their commander, now all of a sudden on my turn I have 6 colorless mana, which is huge. It can change a lot. Pact Negation, counter target spell, but at the beginning of my next upkeep, I have to pay 5 mana, 2 blue, 3 colorless. If I don't, then I'll lose the game. People forget about that trigger all the time, and it's a double-edged sword sometimes, but if I'm winning, I'm not going to be afraid to cast it. It's 0-drop counter spell. It's hard to beat that. Speaking of that, foil, if I discard if I discard an island and 1 other card from my hand, I can counter target spell without paying its cost. So instead of paying 4, it's a free spell. So I can tap out if I have this in my hand and an island and another card. Same thing, Force of Will, counter target spell, pay a life, exile a blue card from my hand, and it's a free counter spell instead of paying 5. Fantastic if I'm out of cards out of mana on the field. That's my Azami deck. Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and if you have any questions or anything like that, just let me know, and I'll be happy to tell you. You guys have seen this deck in action during the pod games, and it does win quite often. So if you guys have any questions or anything, just hit me up. Thank y'all for watching. Bye.
Subscribe.